You might be thinking like, why am I sitting in between all this stuff? Well, like I mentioned in my last video, I became a dad, which meant, I had to clean up the house and, a lot of stuff. I threw it on the attic, and the attic is also the place where I used to, record my videos. And since there's a lot of stuff I have lying around, there's no other option than just sitting on the floor and, try to record a video. Because today, I actually wasn't really planning on making a video today, but since Glory is having their 100th event, I was like, I think I still should, try to make a little video for you guys, because a lot of people already ask me, like, who do you think will win? What do you think of this event? Will you be watching? Do you think Rico is going to retire after this event? So many questions, and I'm excited as well. The biggest fighters are on this card, and that is why I just had to talk about this. First of all, Glory's 100th event. It's insane if you look at the history of Glory, because they had some ups and downs, and they started off, I think, in 2012 after K1, FEG K1, filed for bankruptcy. There was some kind of a void in between, all the kickboxing organizations. So to fill up the void, Glory arose from the ashes, like I mentioned in the video before, and it was quite interesting, because at first I wasn't the biggest fan. I felt like, K1 had this Japanese aesthetic around it, and Glory was very much European, Western focused. I mean, the whole show felt a lot like it's inspired by American MMA boxing shows, which is fine, I guess, but I just wasn't used to it. So I had to, really get used to it. Eventually, they started to grow. They started off with the best fighters from K1, and the big guys, think like Sammy Shields, Peter Arts, Remy Bonjaski, all those big guys. And eventually, these guys retired, and they had to, build up new stars. And some of those stars they had been building up from that point on are still fighting today, and are actually fighting on this card. For example, Rico Verhoeven and Artem Vakhitov, they actually started off in one of the first Glory events, and it's amazing that they're still around and they're still fighting on the highest stage. And, I know a lot of people are not very excited about that fight, but to be honest, I am very excited about that fight, because I've been watching Glory since, day one. And even if you look at those fighting styles, there's a lot of history. At the same time, it's just a very interesting fight technically. But before I'm talking about that, as I mentioned, there are a lot of highs and lows. But Glory really had to find its footing at the start. And when they found their footing, they did some really great shows. I mean, over the years, they had so many great events. Also, maybe not the best events, but, for example, the battle between Rico Verhoeven and Badr Hari, that was an amazing show. The build-up was insane. For me, my personal favorite is Glory 13. It was the farewell event for Peter Art, and as well as Remy Bonjaski in Japan, I mean. And of course, the welterweight tournament, the first time there was a welterweight tournament on the highest level in Glory, with Nicky Holtzken coming on top. That was an amazing final fight. And this event was also stacked. I mean, Jerome Le Banner, Arthur Kashenko, so many great fighters on that card. I mean, I still have fond memories. I remember, like this, being on the attic, watching this event middle of the night, because I live in the Netherlands and the event was in Japan. So, it was awesome. And there are so many of those events that I really enjoy, but there also were some really, disappointing moments. For example, the riot during Glory 80, when, the fight between Badr Hari and Arkadiusz Rosek, got out of hand. Of course, Glory had some financial troubles. There was a lot of insecurity. So I was like, will Glory even continue? Because the thing is, a lot of people complain about Glory, and I have complained my fair share as well. But the thing is, they still have the best and baddest fighters of the planet signed to the organization. So if we're talking solely about kickboxing and the highest level, Glory still is one of the must-see organizations at this moment. Of course, there are so many competitors as well, but these guys, Glory just has the most of the best. So that's why I can't deny them, and I still will be critical. I mean, sometimes you just have to point out the things that can be better. Maybe they will listen, maybe they're not, but they don't need to listen. But I just, sometimes I need to vent, I guess. And I know that a lot of people agree with me, but, it is what it is. Anyway, 13 years later, Glory is organizing their 100th event. They're gonna celebrate this with 20 fights, which is insane. That's a lot for a Glory card. In K1 or in Rise, that's just normal, but for a Glory card, that's a lot. And every fight is pretty much, the highest level, because this event has 4 title fights. I mean, the world heavyweight title is on the line between Rico Verhoeven, a former light heavyweight champion, Artem Vakhitov, of course. The light heavyweight title is on the line in a fight between champion Tarik Khbabez and the challenger Sergej Maslobojev. The middleweight title is on the line with Donovan Wisse, the champion, trying to defend his title for the second time against Michael Boapeah, one of the rising stars. And the 4th title fight, which is a fight I'm very excited about. The featherweight title is on the line between, champion Petch and the challenger Miguel Trindade. This will be the 2nd fight that they will be fighting, because they fought before last year in the tournament final, the featherweight Grand Prix, which was awesome. So this fight is going to be awesome as well, since, Miguel Trindade has been tearing through the division and such a talent. Anyway, this event actually, received some bitter backlash, because originally this was a 2-part event. The first day would be on the 13th of June and the second on the 14th, with 2 cards, of course. And the first day was headlined by Tarik Khbabez and, of course, Artem Vakhitov. The reason was that tickets weren't selling that great, which, is a shame, because both cards were actually very good. Eventually, they made this as a one-night event, combining the cards with, unfortunately, some fights had to be cancelled, which is, a shame. But eventually, we still have a very good card. But I have no idea how the ticket selling is going right now. I really hope, that there will be a, big audience, because I originally wanted to go, to the event but because I just became a dad, it's a little bit too hard, to combine these things. It is what it is. But I will be definitely watching on, DAZN. And talking about DAZN, there has also been a lot of backlash around DAZN, because in the Netherlands, Glory was, you could watch it via Videoland, which is a streaming service just like Netflix, but solely focused on the Netherlands. But the deal fell through, which meant that Glory had to find a new broadcasting partner in the Netherlands. They found DAZN, which is, I guess it works. But the thing is, you have to buy a subscription well, no, that's not true. In general, you should buy a subscription and then you can watch events. And for pay-per-view events, you have to buy a pay-per-view ticket as well. For this event, they decided, let's just do a pay-per-view. But the thing is, in the Netherlands, pay-per-view just isn't a thing. And I've heard a lot of people saying, I'm not going to buy 25 euros for this event. And to be honest, 25 euros isn't that much, but this is a country where, pay-per-view isn't part of culture. So I feel this could be a hit or miss. Personally, I think, pay-per-view could have worked if the marketing was a little bit more, a little bit more sharp, because I feel like not enough people are talking about this event. Since this is the biggest event in Glory's history, marketing has been a little bit lacking, in my opinion. But, I think the diehard kickboxing fans will still watch, but, you also want those casual fans as well, because you want to build a new audience, of course. So we'll see what happens. The reason why I'm making this video as well is because I want to promote this event, even though Glory is not paying me at all, but 25 euros for such a big card is actually not that expensive. But again, it's not part of culture to, buy a pay-per-view. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to enjoy this. I hope you guys will enjoy this as well. It's time to talk about the fights. And what's different from usual videos from me is that I'm, where Glory is not doing this as a 2-parter, I will be doing this as a 2-parter, because I will be talking about the non-tournament fights first. In this video, we'll be talking about, the title fights and, the other super fights. And in another video, I will be talking about the tournament, the last heavyweight standing, second round, so 2 videos for the price of 1. Also on this card, they have 4 one-night, 4-man tournaments, which is pretty insane, with big names like Baram Rajabzadeh, Jamal Ben Sadiq, of course, Tariq Osaro. This card is so stacked. So, man, I can't wait, man. It's pretty amazing. Oh, fuck. Also, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It would help me a lot. I'm here to spread the love of kickboxing. I need you guys, to help me spread this beautiful sport by, subscribing and liking, because that helps, me getting more viewers, which means a lot of more people will be watching. Here's some guy talking about kickboxing. And if that helps getting a bigger audience for kickboxing, that would be awesome. Also, I wanted to mention, I lightly touched upon this subject, but I just became a dad of twin daughters, which is one of the best things that happened in my life. But I just wanted to say it's a lot more tough than I thought. So I'm not sure how frequent I can upload videos talking about kickboxing. But the thing is, I will try because, I love this sport so much and I know you guys love kickboxing as well. And a lot of people ask me how it feels to be a dad. And I can tell you one thing, and that's, you guys probably watch Pokemon, right? It feels like, evolving from a Charmander to a Charizard. Man, all of a sudden I can fly, I can spit fire. I mean, trust me, if you have 2 kids at the same time, you won't sleep anymore. And if you won't sleep anymore, you still, you gotta do your stuff. So it means that you gotta fly. You need to fly. Not sure if that helps, but that's how it feels. All right, let's talk about Glory 100. Let's talk about, these great fights. Man, I'm getting fucking old. All right. Glory 100 will take place on the 14th of June 2025. Awesome event will take place in Ahoy Rotterdam with a massive card, 20 fights. Will be broadcasted on DAZN. The prelims, which you couldn't call them prelims, but it will be broadcasted for free on YouTube, which is pretty awesome. Just if you, want to see some great kickboxing, still in doubt if you want to buy, the pay-per-view, please go watch the fights on YouTube because it's awesome. Since I'm not, talking about this card in one go, I will do this a little bit more different. I start with the super fights and then I'll talk about the title fights. And the first super fight is the fight between Berjan Peposhi and Deniz Demirkapu. This is a very anticipated fight because, first of all, featherweight, which is a division that I'm really fond of. I mean, that this fight isn't a qualifier for the last featherweight standing, that baffles me, but it is an awesome fight. Everybody knows Peposhi. He's a high-paced fighter. He comes to, knock your head off with, relentless punching and combination. You saw it in this last fight in Glory that was against Lee Sang-young during the featherweight Grand Prix. It was an awesome fight. He got knocked down in the last minute in the 3rd round, which cost him the fight. And it does feel like, he lost, whatever. But in my opinion, it was a nominee for Fight of the Year. It was an awesome fight. And, he comes to fight, he comes to brawl, he comes to, mess you up. And he's fighting against Deniz Demirkapu, who is a big talent in kickboxing for a while now. He should have made his debut a few events before, but now he's fighting against Peposhi. And Deniz Demirkapu, he knows how to throw the combination game very well. It's an awesome fighter. And this is a sleeper, so this should be a banger. And if I have to do a prediction, I would say Peposhi will win this pure because of his, sheer experience and talent that he is. And what is next for me, the featherweight, last man standing, that's where he should be. In the next fight, we have 2 fighters that are, one of the biggest talents in kickboxing right now, especially at middleweight. They used to train together, but, one of these guys decided to go away from Mike's gym. And now they have a possibility to fight each other. And that's why I'm quite excited because I always wanted these guys to fight each other. But, because they were gym mates, the chances of them fighting wasn't very likely. But now it's possible. And I'm talking about Serkan Ozcaglayan from Turkey taking on Mohamed Touchassie from Morocco. And yeah, this is such a banger. Both are coming to knock each other's head off. I mean, Ozcaglayan is a guy who's known for his, bombs, big bombs, left and right. His nickname actually is Sleeping Pills, which is awesome because, if he hits you really good, you're going down. And that makes him special. This guy can also kick very good, like the low kick is very good, but he doesn't use it very often. I really hope he is utilizing these kicks a little bit more because if you can kick, the leg between the body and then punch up, that makes it more easy to knock someone out. Because in the last few fights, he has focused a little bit too much on, his boxing. And a lot of fighters seem to, starting to see this, which, you got to change your plan, you got to change your game. And I think if he will, utilize his kicks a little bit more, then, yeah, he could be a world beater. And he's taking on Mohamed Touchassie, who is regarded as the next Badr Hari, which is a big statement. And it's not too strange if you look at his fighting style. It's very similar. They have similar body types. Only, Mohamed Touchassie, he came into Glory as an undefeated fighter. First fight, in Glory's debut, he knocked his opponent out, which was pretty awesome. And then he got the call to, get a late notice replacement fight against Donovan for the light heavyweight title. So he had to go up in weight. And since he's originally a middleweight, at least in Glory, because he used to be a welterweight, he couldn't make the 95 kilogram, limit. He only weighted like 91 kilogram, and then he lost the fight, which is a shame because I'd like to see, undefeated fighters enter Glory and, get some fame and recognition. But after that fight, Yes, he got another win against Brice Combu at middleweight, but afterwards he lost 2 fights in a row, which is a shame because he's a big talent and he knows how to play the combination game as well. Hard low kicks, hard body kicks, knockouts from every angle. So this should be an interesting fight. If I have to do a prediction, I'd say Mohamed Touchassie will win this fight. Maybe not by knockout, but I think he'll win this fight. There's another thing I want to talk about in this fight because this fight will be on catchweight, and that's very strange because these are both, middleweights. So why is this fight on catchweight? So my mind was like, thinking of maybe they want to go to, light heavyweight. But that would be such a shame because the middleweight division is already very shallow. So we need guys like them in middleweight, to keep the division flourishing. And I'm kind of scared that maybe Glory is, planning to, drop the middleweight division since they haven't had a lot of fights in this division. Only the fight between, Selimovic and Hammouche, which is actually a nice segue to the next fight because there will be a rematch between, Mesud Selimovic and Iliass Hammouche on this card. And this fight will be on middleweight. So I was thinking it doesn't really make sense that, the fight that should be on middleweight is on catchweight and the next one is a middleweight fight that it's strange. Well, anyway, we're talking about the next fight, and that's the fight between Selimovic and Hammouche. And of course, the last fight was pretty fucking amazing because, this fight was a fight where Hammouche came with his A game. He was knocking Selimovic a few times on the ground, but he celebrated too hard. He threw his mouth guard away and he was so excited. But the referee didn't start counting until he was in his corner, but he wasn't in his corner. So the count didn't start because those are the rules. So eventually Selimovic had a lot of time to recover. And then, although he did knock Selimovic on the ground again after he got his mouthpiece back and in a surprise turn, a wild spinning back fist from Selimovic hit the face of Hammouche and Hammouche got knocked out. So that was a crazy fight. And although I'm not the biggest fan of this fight, I think it's pretty fun, to bring these fighters back because it was quite exciting for, the drama. But it's not necessarily the, kickboxing's best, to be honest. By the way, who will win? I think Hammouche will win because, he's got something to prove and he really wants to win this fight. I think Hammouche will win this. All right, the first title fight of the evening is the fight between, featherweight king, Petch Kickboxing taking on the challenger, Unica Miguel Trindade. And this is a banger because the last time they fought was in the, the final of the Featherweight Grand Prix last year. It was a really awesome fight. You saw a huge star in, huge upcoming star in Miguel Trindade, coming to the final after 2 knockouts and facing off against the champion who was, cruising pretty easily to the, the final round. And in this fight, a lot of people expected, Miguel to knock Petch out at least. Just win this fight. But it didn't happen. Petch just showed again why he's called the professor, why he is so intelligent and great at distance control, utilizing his kicks, neutralizing your boxing skills because he will smack his leg into your arms, which, make sure that your arms will be like pulp. You can't even keep your hands up anymore. That's his style, and he's very good at doing that. So eventually, although it was a great fight, Miguel Trindade lost the fight, and now they have another chance, do it again, but this time for the Glory featherweight title. So 5 rounds for the Glory Gold. Should be a great fight. Well, before I am going to a prediction, Miguel Trindade is a fighter who is known for power. He can hit you so hard that you will go down. And if you look at his last couple of fights, I think he has now 4 fights in a row ending with a knockout. So aside from the loss against Petch, of course, he is just so great. He is one of the best at featherweight. There's a case to be made that he might be, should have been part of the Beyond Kickboxing pound for pound rankings. There was a lot of discussion because Yuki Yosa came into, the P4P rankings at number 10, but a lot of people said, no, I think Trindade should have been the one. So, and I get it. He's really good, but he's gonna fight for the title against Petch. But although I want to say that Miguel Trindade could win this fight, I feel like Petch is still on top of this game. He is only, I think, 29, maybe he's 30 right now, but he's still fairly young and he's only getting better. He's training in Canada with, Adrian Fairtex, training a lot of his boxing skills. He's really one of the best. He is basically, well, people probably disagree with me, but he's the Rico Verhoeven of the featherweight division. He is just almost unbeatable. Of course, he did lose against Chad Collins, but that's a while ago again. But still, he had such a long winning streak that if Miguel Trindade wants to win this fight, he has to, make it a dirty fight. He has to do something unexpected, because that's what Chad Collins did. He didn't want to respect Petch's legs. He just walked through them and just got into the inside, giving dirty knees, dirty punches on the inside. And I think that if Trindade could pull that off, well, yeah, then he may be winning this fight. But if we look solely at what Petch can do and what he has done in his last fight, but in all the other title fights, I feel like Petch is going to win this again. And what is next for Petch? That's very difficult, because he has beaten them all. And I think the only most logical step is for him to enter the Glory, last featherweight standing. And that should be awesome. The second title fight of the evening, of course, we're talking about the middleweight gold. Of course, one of the biggest prospects in kickboxing is finally getting his chance to fight for middleweight gold, because we're talking about Michael Boapeah, the time bomb, taking on the middleweight king, Donovan Wisse. How do I start? This fight should have been taking place originally on last December during Glory Collision 7. Didn't end up happening because Donovan Wisse was injured. So the fight couldn't happen, which was unfortunate. And, Michael Boapeah has been challenging Donovan Wisse for a while now. Even after December, his last fight enduring Glory Underground in Miami, he was like, are you hurting here? Are you hurting there? You got an injury here? Or do you got an injury there? It's time to fight, And he's building this fight up for such a long time. And now it's finally happening, the rematch. In their last fight, Michael Boapeah did very well, but you saw his experience just wasn't there as it is right now, because in the later rounds, Donovan Wisse was just neutralizing him completely with his technical supremacy, because Donovan Wisse is one of the most technical kickboxers you will ever see. He's one of the best. He's insane. But he's fighting against a guy who has been going up in light heavyweight since their last fight and coming back to middleweight. His body is getting stronger. He's getting more, power. He's getting more experience. He uses his scalp kick very well. So this is going to be a difficult fight to, predict, but a very intriguing one to watch. And I want to make a prediction, but I really don't know, because we haven't seen Donovan Wisse in a while since he fought against Sergej Brown, which he won pretty fairly easy. And the thing is Donovan Wisse has been champion for such a long time, but he hasn't taken a lot of risks in his last couple of fights, which is a shame. And if we look at, Michael Boapeah, he has been taking risk a lot, because he has been knocking people out. And that's what we want to see, of course. And I feel like Michael Boapeah is not holding himself back. He's coming to fight. And if we see how he's grown in the last couple of months, Ja? Oké, kom eraan. Oké, tot zo. Yeah, the dad life. Gotta go down, give my baby some food before I'm gonna take a break, which obviously isn't a break, but things have to be done. I wanted to say, we haven't seen Donovan Wisse in a while, so I'm not sure what kind of Donovan Wisse we will see in at Glory 100. But I do know what kind of Michael Boapeah we will be seeing. And to be honest, I feel this is Boapeah's moment, man. He's on fire. He's going crazy, knocking people out. And I feel like if it's gonna happen anytime, it's probably going to happen on Glory 100. But at the same time, he's still so young. I think he's 24, 25. So even if he would lose, I still feel like this is even half his potential. I think he's going to be an amazing big star if he continue to pace like this. But I'm giving Boapeah the benefit of the doubt. All right, I'm back. Well, let's go to the co-main event of the evening. Co-main event is the second title fight of the night. It's the fight between light heavyweight champion Tarik Khbabez from Morocco and the challenger, former champion, the Lithuanian sledgehammer Sergej Maslobojev. a lot of people regard this as the people's main event. But I think it's because, Tarik Khbabez has so many fans that a lot of people, are craving for this fight. I mean, every time this guy fights, people, feel like he should be on the, he should be the main event. I get it. He's a hell of a fighter. He's fighting against top competition in Maslobojev. But, if we look at, mainstream popularity, Rico Verhoeven is still the undisputed, most popular fighter at this moment in, especially heavyweight kickboxing. But I think in kickboxing in general, if you look at, the casual audience, mainstream audience, if you look at, international appeal, I think most people will still say, Rico Verhoeven is the most famous current generation kickboxer. But I get it. Tarik Khbabez is, again, one hell of a fighter. He always comes to, you knock your head off. He has an incredible stamina, never tires out, and he's coming to, coming to kill you, basically. He's a real tank. And, well, he's facing off against, Maslobojev. His nickname is Sledgehammer, which, isn't for nothing. He knocks a lot of people out. He actually, in his last fight, wasn't in glory, it was outside of glory. He fought against Jimmy Livinius, and he also fought in glory as well, but this fight was outside of glory, and he knocked him out. Maslobojev is one hell of a fighter because he is not only a fighter that is known for his power, he's also very technical, diverse. What I want to say with that is, in his last fight in glory, he fought against Stefan Letesco, who is regarded as one of the biggest upcoming fighters in light heavyweight. But he completely dismantled him, and that's very unique because again, Letescu is one of the biggest talents out there. I think he's only 23 years young, and Maslobojev, I think he's almost double the age. I think he's 40 or something. So to be able to, to be so technical supreme versus some new upcoming young guy is very impressive. To be honest, beating Letescu maybe isn't the right opponent, to get a title shot. But at the same time, he has been up there for such a long time. He has been beating top competition for years, and I feel like still, with the history these two guys have, it's a great fight because in their last fight, they fought against each other. I mean, Khbabez and Maslobojev. It was fight of the year, I think, and it was 5 rounds of one big slugfest. It was for the vacant light heavyweight title, and great fight, and I'd like to see that happen again. And what I said, Khbabez has a lot of fans, so this is going to be, the audience will be roaring. This will be a very loud fight. And I know most fans in the arena will be on the side of Khbabez, but you can't count Maslobojev out. I mean, he is known for, enjoying the well, I don't want to say hostility, more like, if he's in the opponent's house, he actually enjoys it. He always tells you, like, it gives me energy. I want to perform to the best of my abilities, and you guys help me. Those things are very characteristic for Maslobojev, and that makes him a very nice character in the kickboxing game. So I'm looking very much to it. And yeah, to come back to Khbabez, he is a very emotional fighter. He knows how to get under your skin, but he also gets under. People can get under his skin as well, but that makes for a nice, storytelling, a nice build up to the fight. And at this moment, everything looks a little bit clean. There hasn't been a lot of trash talk, but I can't wait for, the weigh-in because, I can expect some trash talk from Maslobojev, talking against Khbabez and vice versa. It's going to be a great fight. And if we look at who is going to win, my prediction is difficult because, again, Maslobojev is already a 40-year-old guy, which normally spoken, people say after 40, well, you're probably at the end of your career, which still holds truth, I think. But at the same time, he hasn't looked bad in all of his glory fights. He always looks like, a young guy. He's always fighting as he's in his early 30s. And if we look at Khbabez, he never backs down. He never gets tired. He comes to, knock you out by, go to the body. I personally think that the first few rounds, Khbabez will be, a little bit more dominant. And I feel like slowly Maslobojev will take over the fight because he will use his technical supremacy to overcome his opponent. And that happened in the last fight. And I feel like this fight will be going a little bit of the same way. But at the time, I felt like Maslobojev did enough. A lot of people said, no, I think Khbabez won the fight. So it will probably another split decision. But if I have to make, a prediction, I feel like Maslobojev could pull it off again. And if that happens, it could be interesting for the division because we can make some new matchups. Because he still has, unfinished business with Deniz. But if Khbabez wins, it's interesting because, Bahram Rajabzadeh still wants the title fight. And he, I still want to see him fight against Khbabez because they are both very emotional fighters going all in, going for the kill. So that would be an amazing fight as well. Whatever happens, it's going to be awesome. And what is next? I think Bahram Rajabzadeh will be the next guy in line to fight for the title. But at the same time, there's so many more fighters. Like since Boapeah is going up in light heavyweight, he could be a potential contender. Milos Vetikanin is still there. You have Jem Caceres, you have Mori Kroma. It's such a stacked division. It's going to be awesome. Let's talk about the main event of the evening. Of course, we're talking about Rico Verhoeven, the king of kickboxing from the Netherlands, the heavyweight king, taking on challenger and, former light heavyweight champion Artem Vakhitov. This is going to be a very interesting fight. And, let me just start off with a lot of people feel like this fight doesn't make sense. I mean, they're saying like, Rico Verhoeven fighting against the former light heavyweight champion who hasn't been in glory for, over a year or maybe 2 years already. I get that. But at the same time, I feel like, Artem Vakhitov has always been, one of the best. He was regarded as the Rico Verhoeven of light heavyweight because he has been a champion for years until he lost, well, in some eyes, controversial against Alex Pereira. And, he just is so technical, versatile. His flow is insane. It's like a music piece, very fitting because, another, kickboxing media guy, a journalist called Giovanni Chin actually said, Artem Vakhitov, we should call you the maestro. And he was like, no, well, maybe we should, So very fitting nickname for a guy who fights like he's, writing a musical piece. So actually, Vakhitov has challenged Rico Verhoeven in the past. There is even an interview on that on YouTube, on Glory's YouTube channel. And this fight should have been happening a long time ago. I get it. The build-up isn't as great as it could have been because he has been away for such a long time. But, he's back. And if we solely look at his performances, his experiences, his accomplishments, and I feel like this is a very fitting opponent. Actually, a dark horse if you look at, the general consensus of who he should be fighting. Because, a lot of fans were asking for Jamal Ben Saddik. And I feel like a lot of people ask for Jamal Ben Saddik just for, the drama. And of course, I'm here to tell stories. And I feel like storytelling-wise, yes, he's a great opponent. But at this moment, Jamal Ben Saddik is entering the tournament, the Glory Last Heavyweight standing tournament, which means like he has to fight on that same night, to actually win a participation at the tournament in the end of December. So there was never a possibility. All the heavyweights were already spoken for. So in that case, in that regard, I'm actually very happy that they found a great opponent in Artem Vakhitov. And still, even if Jamal Ben Saddik wasn't in this tournament, I still feel like he should be fighting at least one more top 5 opponent before getting a fight against the champion. And I feel like that is for most fighters in heavyweight at this moment. So yeah, I'm actually very sold on this fight. It's just a shame that Glory hasn't sold this fight as well to the general audiences because, tell a story. You got to convince, well, not me, because I'm already convinced that this is a great fight, but convinced, the mainstream audiences why this fight is so interesting, so important, why Artem Vakhitov is such a specimen, why he is this great, Artem Vakhitov has been in Glory since, I think Glory 9, so in New York, when he knocked out Louis Tavares. He's been around for such a long time, just like Rico is, and I feel like he never got the same recognition, and while he actually has been very dominant with a, very interesting fighting style. So, going to be a great fight. Again, I can talk about Rico Verhoeven. Everybody already know how he fights and what he's going to do. And long story short, he's going to play, a tactical game, probably trying to play a chess match, which is interesting because Artem Vakhitov is known to be fighting a chess match as well. Artem Vakhitov, he has some sneaky high kicks, very explosive salvos in his punches. So he can, do some stuff that Rico hasn't had in a while, because again, he's from light heavyweight, which means he used to fight at 95 kg, which is a lot lighter than Rico is. And because Rico is about, I think, 122 kilograms or something. So that's a big weight difference. But at the same time, that means that speed is on the side of Vakhitov. Speed in combination with his technical supremacy is going to be a problem. So, and that's why I'm so interested about this fight, because this is something we haven't seen before. And if he would, you know, Jamal Ben Sadiq in this fight, then it would be a guy who is known for, you know, going all in, throwing bombs, which is interesting. And probably if, you know, for example, if Plazibas was booked, the same thing would have happened as well. Also bombs going forward. He already, you know, he made it very clear, I'm going to go throw bombs. Many times people have tried that and it didn't work. So for someone like Vakhitov stepping up, you know, in weight, going to heavyweight, it's so different that intrigues me so much. So I can't wait, man. It should be an interesting fight, and I'm very curious about what you guys think is going to happen. Of course, everybody's expecting me to, you know, give you guys a prediction, and that's what I'm going to do. But to be honest, while I think Vakhitov is technical, basically perfect, I still feel that the weight difference is going to be a big issue for him. And not only the weight difference, but also the size difference, because, you know, Rico Verhoeven is not only a little bit more tall, but also a little bit more wide. So it's going to be a very tall task for Vakhitov to beat Rico. But if he pulls the upset, man, that would be upset of the century. That would be insane. Crazy. For the story, I'm all up for this. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. You know, that would be insane that someone people didn't expect happening, you know, didn't feel like he could make a chance against, you know, Rico Verhoeven, the champion. If he pulls it off, that would be insane. But honestly, I think Rico Verhoeven will win this fight and keep his Glory heavyweight title. Also, I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of people felt like maybe Rico Verhoeven is going to retire now. Well, there had been a little bit of mentioning that he could be retiring, but I don't think he'll be retiring, because if I remember correctly, well, early last year, Glory signed a contract with Glory for 3 years, which means his contract isn't up until 2027. So we'll be seeing Rico Verhoeven for a long time from now on. I actually hope very much that he will be entering the Glory last heavyweight standing as a wild card, because I don't think they will be putting him in, you know, the qualification. And at the same time, he's the Grand Prix champion of 2024. In my opinion, he should be giving his you know, a ticket for the finals, just like how they did in K1. I have no problem with that. So that's a little bit, you know, how I think about this fight. I hope I sold you a little bit on this fight. You know, it's a very intriguing one. So tell me, do you agree with my picks? Do you agree with who I think will come on top? Or are you like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Let me know down in the comments. And as mentioned, this is part 1 of the Glory 100 preview show. In part 2, I will be talking about the heavyweight tournaments, the 4 one-night, 4-man heavyweight tournaments for the Glory last heavyweight standing tournament that will be, you know, ending in the final 8 in December. So, you know, go to that video. I will link that video down in the description, so there's no excuse to watch that video as well. And of course, this video is about Glory 100. You know, the 100th event in the history of Glory. Let me know, what are your most favorite moments in Glory's history, and what are your least favorite moments in Glory's history? Let me know in the comments. And, you know, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and channel, and I'll see you in the next video.